Good morning America, today the 16th of January 2026 news. U.S. President Donald Trump said he supports a newly appointed Palestinian technocratic government to oversee Gaza's transition, as Washington announced a second phase of a fragile ceasefire that began in October, aiming to stabilize governance and administration in the territory. Taiwan aims to become a close U.S. strategic partner in artificial intelligence after a tariff reduction deal that boosts Taiwanese investment, as Washington urges the semiconductor powerhouse to expand chip manufacturing in the United States to support growing AI demand. Oil prices were largely unchanged on Friday as fears of a U.S. strike on Iran eased. Brent slipped slightly to $63.73 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate edged up to $59.22 in early trading. Asian stocks rose as the AI boom regained strength, while the dollar hovered near a six-week high after strong U.S. data reduced rate cut expectations. Oil stayed weak and gold and silver fell as Trump took a cautious stance on Iran. A U.S. federal judge dismissed the Justice Department's lawsuit seeking California's unredacted voter registration list, ruling the claims insufficient under civil rights and voting laws and saying the request violated voter privacy protections. A federal judge called President Donald Trump an authoritarian, and said he will issue an order to protect academics challenging arrests and deportations of non-citizen pro-Palestinian activists, blocking changes to their immigration status. Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel laureate Maria Corina Machado presented her Nobel Peace Prize medal to U.S. President Donald Trump during a White House meeting, seeking influence over U.S. policy on Venezuela. Trump plans to keep the medal. Radio Free Asia plans to revive Korean language content to reach North Korea, restarting digital output next week and later resuming radio broadcasts, after operations were largely halted during a Trump administration cost-cutting drive. Wall Street investment bankers expect a busy year after strong 2025, with top U.S. banks reporting higher fourth-quarter profits. Goldman Sachs saw 25% fee growth, Morgan Stanley 47% revenue surge, and Citigroup achieved record M&A advisory revenue. Governors from U.S. states with growing data center construction will meet the White House Friday to sign an agreement with the Trump administration to limit electricity costs, including two-year price caps and requiring companies like Amazon and Google to share expansion costs. The U.S. and Taiwan reached a trade deal cutting tariffs on semiconductors, encouraging U.S. tech investments, and strengthening ties with Taipei, potentially angering China, while the Trump administration seeks closer relations without sparking a full trade war with Beijing. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said next week's forecasts will highlight the global economy's resilience to trade shocks and fairly strong growth, suggesting IMF may slightly revise forecasts upward following similar adjustments by the World Bank during her visit to Kyiv. Trump's controversial foreign actions include a large-scale U.S. raid that captured Venezuela's leader Nicolas Maduro, prompting criticism that his policies resemble 19th-century colonialism, and his repeated threats to annex or acquire Greenland, unsettling allies and international norms. The U.S. Commerce Department imposed a 25% national security tariff on high-end semiconductors as a Phase 1 measure to protect the industry. Other tariffs may follow, with Trump having threatened 100% tariffs on chips not produced in the U.S. Australia's treasurer backed the central bank head for supporting Fed Chair Jerome Powell, calling it appropriate, after the Trump administration threatened Powell with criminal charges over Fed headquarters renovations, which Powell criticized as a pretext to influence U.S. interest rate decisions. Mexican Foreign Minister Juan Ramón de la Fuente and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed security, reaffirming the U.S.-Mexico partnership. The U.S. emphasized that only incremental progress on border security challenges is unacceptable, according to a joint statement and social media post. Oil firms are scrambling to secure tankers and logistics to export Venezuelan crude to the U.S. following President Maduro's ouster, racing to transfer oil from aging vessels and decrepit ports amid competition for limited loading slots and operational challenges. U.S. President Donald Trump expressed support for the newly appointed Palestinian technocratic government in Gaza, as Washington announced a second phase of a fragile ceasefire that began in October, aiming to oversee governance and stabilize the region during its transitional period. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada and China are forming a strategic partnership promising historic gains, leveraging mutual strengths. Carney, the first Canadian PM to visit China since 2017, aims to rebuild ties after months of diplomatic efforts. Gold prices fell on Friday as strong U.S. economic data reduced expectations for Fed rate cuts, while easing geopolitical tensions lowered safe haven demand. Spot gold dropped 0.4% to $4,598.52 per ounce but is set for a weekly gain of around 2%. Spain's Iberdrola commissioned a $1.65 billion Canada-US power interconnection, the New England Clean Energy Connect, carrying hydroelectric power from Quebec to New England. The 233-kilometer, 1,200-megawatt line can supply nearly 10% of Massachusetts' electricity and has begun operations. Madison Keys, defending Australian Open champion, is enjoying her return and looks forward to taking a photo of her name in the champion's tunnel to share with her mother, still marveling at seeing herself celebrated throughout Melbourne Park. San Francisco 49ers linebacker Fred Warner will miss Saturday's divisional playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks due to an ankle injury. Coach Kyle Shanahan plans to prepare Warner for the NFC Championship on January 25 if the team advances. Free agent outfielder Kyle Tucker agreed to a 4-year, $240 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, including opt-outs after years 2 and 3. The New York Mets had reportedly offered $50 million per year, but Tucker chose the Dodgers. Aryna Sabalenka used her offseason exhibitions, including a Battle of the Sexes match, to refine her game. Starting 2026 by winning the Brisbane title, she combined power with serve and volley skills, preparing for a third Australian Open title at Melbourne Park.